The story of Clarence Elkins. Part 1, The Morning That Changed Everything, Ohio. A thick morning fog curled through the streets of Barberton, a small town where everyone knew each other. Summer had just begun. The air was warm, but something unsettling lingered in it. Judy Johnson woke up earlier than usual, woken by the ring of the phone. On the other end was her 6-year-old niece, Brooke. "Aunt Judy." The girl's voice was tight, as if she was whispering, "Grandma. She's not waking up. And Uncle Clarence was here." Those words hit like a knife. Judy froze. Then came a rush of adrenaline. Questions, panic, tears, they'd come later. For now, she had to act. She threw on jeans and a t-shirt, grabbed her keys, and ran out the door. As she drove, one thought kept spinning in her head: why did Brooke say Clarence? Her husband. Yes, they were going through a divorce, but he would never. He couldn't. She pushed those thoughts away, clinging to reason. But Brooke's words kept echoing. When she arrived, the police were already there, neighbors had called them. Inside the house, a heavy silence hung. Judy's mother, Judy Johnson Sr., was dead. Little Brooke, shaken and terrified, sat in one of the rooms, wrapped in a blanket like a cocoon. The girl's words became the official beginning of a nightmare. She claimed she had woken up in the night to the sound of movement. At first, she thought it was her grandmother. But when she looked into the hallway, she saw a man. He assaulted her, raped her, and left. She said, "It was Uncle Clarence. I know his voice. He smelled the same. It was him." The accusation police didn't hesitate. The evidence was circumstantial, but the child's statement was compelling. Within days, Clarence Elkins, a 35-year-old auto mechanic and father of 2, was arrested. He insisted he had been home that night. His wife Melinda and son could confirm it. But neither the police nor the prosecution were interested in listening. Clarence's attorney did everything he could. He pointed to the lack of DNA evidence, the absence of physical proof. But to the jury, the case was clear. A little girl, traumatized and assaulted, couldn't lie. Couldn't be wrong. Or could she? The trial didn't last long. Verdict: guilty. Clarence was sentenced to life in prison. Life behind bars. Years passed. Prison slowly erased the features of his face, turning a man into a number. But Clarence didn't give up. He kept fighting, filing appeals, begging for a new trial. All in vain. Only one person never stopped believing in him: his wife, Melinda. Despite the divorce, despite the accusations, despite the pain, she knew he couldn't have done this. Deep down, she felt Brooke was wrong. It wasn't him. Melinda began her own investigation. She combed through archives, spoke to lawyers, searched for evidence that could prove Clarence's innocence. All she had was faith and intuition. And that wasn't enough. Until the breakthrough came. The first lead, she decided to speak to Brooke, now a teenager. After some hesitation, Brooke confessed, "I'm not sure anymore that it was Uncle Clarence." That sentence changed everything. Melinda knew she had a chance. She started recalling who else might have been in the area, someone who looked or sounded similar. And soon, a name emerged: Earl Mann, her mother's neighbor, a man with a criminal record. He was already serving time for rape and assault. And on the day of the crime, he had vanished for several hours. The story of Clarence Elkins. Part 2, Following the Trail. Earl Mann. A name that had raised no suspicion before. Quiet, nondescript, nearly invisible, a textbook predator. When Melinda stumbled on his name, it felt like a revelation. She started digging. The more she learned, the tighter the knot in her stomach became. He lived next door to her mother at the time of the crime. His criminal record included sexual assaults, escape attempts. One of his previous attacks bore an eerie resemblance to what had happened to Brooke. But all this was just suspicion. No proof. So Melinda went further. She began visiting the prison where Earl was serving his sentence. She tracked him, tried to make contact. Sometimes she sat in her car for hours, just watching, waiting. Many thought she was crazy. But she was a woman who believed in the truth. Who believed in her husband. Test tube DNA, the last hope. The real breakthrough came when she managed to get a court order for a DNA test on the evidence from the crime scene. Clarence had requested this many times before, but was always denied. Now, with a new name in the picture, his lawyers finally got approval. Clarence's DNA was a clean slate. Not a single biological trace of him on the girl or in the house. But it wasn't enough. Prosecutors said, that doesn't prove he wasn't there. He could have worn gloves. He could have left no trace. They needed someone else to believe in the mistake. Melinda's decision. So Melinda did the impossible. She got Earl Mann's DNA, unofficially. Secretly. She found out he was in the same prison as Clarence. She made a deal with a guard. She took a cup Earl had drunk from. A napkin he had wiped his mouth with. Anything to get a sample. She passed the items to Clarence's lawyers. They had them tested independently. And the result was shocking. A perfect match. Earl Mann's DNA was an exact match to the DNA found on Brooke. A perfect match. Not 50%. Not 90%. 100%. He had been in Judy Johnson's house. He had assaulted Brooke. And Clarence had been in prison all that time for someone else's crime. But even with that, the case wasn't dismissed immediately. The justice system moves slowly. More hearings, more motions, more waiting. Day of freedom then came December 15, 2005. 7 years and 4 months after his arrest, Clarence Elkins was finally set free. The judge read the decision, release him immediately. The conviction is overturned. There were tears in the courtroom. Tears of relief, tears of joy. Clarence stepped outside, took a breath of free air. And broke down crying. He hugged Melinda. Not as husband and wife. But as two warriors who had survived a war together. The story of Clarence Elkins. Part 3, Life after prison. After freedom, a hollow victory. Leaving prison wasn't a triumph, it was a return to a world that had long moved on. While Clarence rotted behind bars, his son had become a teenager. His home was gone. His name, stained. He didn't walk out a hero, but a man whose guilt had been erased, not his suffering. He and Melinda tried to be a family again. But 7 years in prison leaves a scar that doesn't heal. They parted ways. Not because they didn't love each other, but because they were both too damaged. Still, they remained deeply bonded, forever allies. The fight continued. Clarence didn't stay silent. He spoke out, loudly. In every interview, on every stage, he raised the same questions. How could this happen? How could a mistaken child's testimony be the only evidence? Why did the court ignore the lack of proof? Why did prosecutors fight for a conviction, not the truth? He filed a lawsuit against the state of Ohio, and won compensation. Money didn't give back the years. But it gave him a chance to rebuild. Brooke's words. Brooke grew up. And one day, as an adult, she came to Clarence. With tears. With pain. And said, I'm sorry. I was just a child. I didn't know what I was saying. They told me it was you. I was terrified. Clarence hugged her. No anger. No blame. He knew, she was a victim too. Earl Mann and Earl Mann. He received a life sentence. Convicted thanks to the very evidence Melinda had collected. Without her, he might have gone free. And Clarence might have died behind bars. But the truth won. Even if far too late. What we take from this story isn't just about justice. It's about the fragility of the system. About how easily the innocent can become the guilty. And about how love, persistence, and belief from one person can break through prison walls. Melinda wasn't just a wife. She was a force. A woman who wouldn't give up. Who stood against everyone, for the truth. For her husband. For justice. And Clarence, He is a reminder that even the broken can rise, if someone believes in them.